and welcome to Pock and Rob. In this video I am continuing my series ranking the tracks of the Beatles studio albums. This is part 3 and therefore I have reached 1964's A Hard Day's Night. I'm expecting that this is going to be a pretty short video, mainly because if you've watched them before, you know I tend to spend a little bit more time having a go at tracks I really don't like. And there's nothing to dislike on A Hard Day's Night. Before I rank the tracks, I would remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so, to click the bell to receive notifications of future content, the thumbs up to like the video, and share the video. Our subscriber count is now above 210. We are heading inexorably towards 250 when I will do another live stream. It'd be absolutely great if that was a year anniversary from the last one, which I did at the end of January last year. So let's go in and rank the 13 tracks. And at number 13, I have placed When I Get Home. It's fine. And that's the worst thing I'll say about anything on this list, is When I Get Home is fine. I enjoy it. And as you know, this album is very Lennon centric. It's very Lennon focused. He was kind of on fire at that point. It's a fine track. At number 12, I have placed I'll Cry Instead. And it's perfectly fine. I enjoy it. I like everything on the album. At number 11, I have placed what I think is the weakest track on side 1 of the record, and therefore the weakest track that is featured in the film. It's I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, and I'm sorry, it's the only track that George sings lead on. This is one of the rare tracks on the album that is a co-write between John and Paul, a proper co-write rather than just credited so. And in those early days, they often didn't give their strongest material to other people, or indeed the other Beatles. And I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, weakest track from the film, but it's still perfectly fine. At number 10, the B-side to Can't Buy Me Love, it's You Can't Do That. This might be the only one that I have got anything negative to say about, and that is that it's just a little bit... It's a bit of John's questionable lyric period. You'll see the same thing come up when we get to Rubber Soul, just telegraphing what is going to come bottom on the Rubber Soul rankings list. That said, it's a good song. It rocks. The whole album just fizzes and pops with throughout in all of the playing. At number 9, I have placed Tell Me Why, the second weakest track from the film. It's probably, dare I say, the most forgettable out of all of the tracks that are featured in the film. It doesn't have the distinction of being sung by George, but that's not in any way to say that it's bad, because it really isn't. Tell Me Why, I think it's really good. At number 8, I have placed Any Time at All. And whilst re-listening to this, just to make sure that my ranking did actually line up with what I was thinking, I ended up reading about Any Time at All and how it's been cited as being a rewrite of the opening track of With the Beatles, It Won't Be Long. And it kind of is, actually. It's very similar thematically. Is it better than it? No, I don't think it is. I think the punch of the opening on With the Beatles carries it just that little bit higher than this version Anytime at All. But I like both of them a lot. And the Beatles did occasionally revisit and rework an idea that they thought they could do better. It's Anytime at All. I really like it. At number 7, the album closer, and it's a downbeat song. It's probably the only really downbeat song on the album. It's I'll Be Back. For me, it's the John and Paul harmonies that carry the song to basically sitting right slap bang in the middle of the album in terms of my ranking. I think I'll Be Back is absolutely lovely, and it went against what George Martin had been doing with them for the first two albums, and indeed generally felt should be the case throughout their records, that you end with a bang. This, I'm not saying that Hard Day's Night ended with a whimper, it didn't, but it ended with a song of greater maturity than much of the record. And had I'll Be Back been held over for Beatles for Sale, it would have been a much better fit. It's definitely a cousin of Babies in Black, which of course we'll come to on the next video in this series. And number 6, I Should Have Known Better. I can't divorce this in my brain from seeing it in the film with the playing the song in the mail carriage of the train. And along with that, I also remember hearing it as part of the Stars on 45 medley. That was a massive hit in the UK. I don't know how it did in the US, but huge hit in the UK. And so one of the earliest Beatles songs of which I was ever aware. At number 5, we have the first Paul song on here, and it's the lead-off single, Can't Buy Me Love. Now, this wasn't meant to be part of the Hard Day's Night film. I think they were going to use I'll Cry Instead for the sequence where they break out of the studio and have larks in the field next to it. But the director didn't like it, and so he put it in Can't Buy Me Love, which by then had already been a million-selling number one hit single. If there's anything about it, it's the fact that I think I've probably heard it too much. And I understand that Paul is opening his shows with either this or A Hard Day's Night, which makes sense, 2024, and it's 60 years since this album was released. So he's kind of revisiting this whole period in retrospect. I'd still absolutely love to get a Paul McCartney ticket for one of the London shows. Keep posted, guys. If it happens, I will let you know on the channel whether or not I got to go. I'd love to go and see him live. But anyway, Can't Buy Me Love, great single, million selling. It's my number 5. And number 4, the other number 1 hit single from the record, and it's the title track and the title of the film, Hard Day's Night, with that bizarre chord that opens, and then, yes, it's a John song, but we get the delight of Paul singing the high parts of the link, that is almost a bridge, because it was too high for John. So you get both of their great vocals and an absolute power pop classic. Hard Day's Night, number 4. And number 3 is back with Paul for his other song that was included in the film, And I Love Her, which is interesting to note that, yes, it's very much a John album. It means that had they not used Can't Buy Me Love, then Paul would have only had one song actually included in the film. That was his and his alone. Interestingly enough, this is possibly, therefore, also George's greatest contribution to the album, in my view, because this was apparently going to be a lot faster, and George came up with the idea of slowing it down and playing that beautiful Spanish guitar part in the middle of it. And I Love Her is, I think it might be Paul's first truly great ballad. And I Love Her at number 3. At number 2, the opening sequence alone and the direction that the chords go gives If I Fell iconic status, to the point where when Neil Innes did the Ruttles, he wrote a song with that in the back of his mind, and it's a perfect Beatles pastiche. If I Fell is John's greatest song on this record for me, because it just doesn't go where you expect it to. Which leaves at number 1 the track that is still my favourite, because if you've watched my list where I identify my favourite from every single Beatles album, there's going to be no surprises on this to what number 1 is going to be, and it's Things We Said Today. This is at a time when John was churning out song after song of this kind of quality throughout, Paul swings for the fences and absolutely hits it. Because I think Things We Said Today is terrifically brilliant. I wish it had been in the film. It's a shame that it wasn't. I think it was too late for it. It's you can't call anything really by the Beatles a hidden gem, but if there is, it's this one from this album, buried in the middle of side 2 amongst a collection of John songs, is what I think is the best thing on the whole of A Hard Day's Night, Things We Said Today. That concludes my ranking the tracks of the Hard Day's Night album. We're coming up to the end of 2024, and just to telegraph a few things that are coming up on the channel over the next month or so, you're going to get my 2024 review of my favourite albums. My son will be joining me for that. We will also include our long list of 15 favourite songs of the year and what our favourite top 5 are, in particular in order. Also going to be coming up will be my forward look into 2025 of what I'm hoping for and what I'm expecting, what I know's coming. And hopefully we'll hit 250 subscribers, and by the end of January we may be doing a live stream again. And I think it's going to either be the 90s or the 70s number 1 tier listing. The last one was so much fun to do. I'd love to be able to do another one because you've shared this channel with other people. So, before I go, I'd remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so, to click the thumbs up, to like the video, the bell for notifications of future content. Do share it, do leave a comment. I do respond or like your comments. And thanks for watching.